Welcome, friends. Have you ever found yourself eating constantly, yet still feeling unsatisfied, as though something is missing? In our modern world, food is often used as a source of comfort, a way to cope with stress, emotions, or simply the hustle and bustle of life. But what if the key to true fulfillment doesn't lie in eating more, but in understanding how we engage with food and our bodies on a deeper level? What if we told you that eating less could lead to greater contentment and a sense of wholeness? This might sound counterintuitive at first, but when we shift our perspective, we begin to realize that the act of eating can become a tool for mindfulness, healing, and spiritual growth. The Buddhist teachings offer profound insights into this concept. Buddhism encourages us to understand the impermanent nature of our desires and cravings, and through mindfulness, we can develop a deeper awareness of our physical and emotional states. Mindfulness, in its simplest form, means paying full attention to the present moment without judgment. When applied to eating, mindfulness invites us to be more conscious of what we are eating, how much we are eating, and how it makes us feel. In Buddhism, food is viewed not just as a physical necessity, but as a way to nourish both the body and the mind. Through mindful eating, we can learn to cultivate a balanced relationship with food, one that doesn't rely on indulgence or deprivation but on awareness and presence. The Buddha taught us about the middle way, a path that avoids extremes. This principle can be applied to our approach to food. Often, we either overeat or deprive ourselves, both of which lead to dissatisfaction. By embracing moderation and understanding our true needs, we can develop a more harmonious relationship with food. The Buddhist practice of mindful eating encourages us to savor each bite, appreciate the nourishment it provides, and listen to our bodies when they signal fullness. This practice helps us let go of the emotional attachments to food that often lead to overeating. Furthermore, the concept of non-attachment in Buddhism can be transformative when applied to our eating habits. When we are attached to food, whether it's a craving for comfort foods or the habit of eating out of stress, we allow our desires to control us. But through mindfulness, we can learn to recognize these desires without being ruled by them. This doesn't mean that we must give up the pleasure of eating or deny ourselves joy in food, but it means we approach food with respect, awareness, and without excess. By practicing non-attachment, we can let go of the need to eat for reasons beyond physical hunger, allowing us to find true contentment. The Buddha also spoke of the importance of balance in all aspects of life. Just as we find balance in our emotions, thoughts, and actions, we must also seek balance in our physical nourishment. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to practice gratitude for the food we have, to recognize it as a gift, and to treat it with respect. When we eat with gratitude and mindfulness, we shift from a mindset of scarcity or excess to one of sufficiency and appreciation. Through these teachings, we begin to see that eating less isn't about denying ourselves, but rather about being more attuned to our true needs and our inner wisdom. When we eat mindfully, we can find a sense of fulfillment that goes far beyond the food itself. The Buddha's teachings guide us toward a path of understanding and self-awareness, where we can find balance in our relationship with food and cultivate a sense of peace and contentment in our lives. So, friends, if you're ready to transform your relationship with food, to explore the profound wisdom of Buddhism and mindfulness, and to discover how eating less can lead to greater satisfaction, I invite you to join us on this journey. Let's learn to nourish our bodies and souls with intention, awareness, and gratitude, embracing the wisdom that leads to true fulfillment. Mindfulness is a practice deeply rooted in Buddhism and offers a powerful tool for cultivating awareness in every aspect of our lives. When it comes to eating, mindfulness can transform not only the way we nourish our bodies but also our relationship with food itself. In Buddhist teachings, the act of eating is not merely a physical need to satisfy hunger, it is also a profound practice that connects us to the present moment and encourages us to cultivate a deeper awareness of our body, mind, and environment. One of the most significant aspects of mindfulness in Buddhism is the practice of eating with full attention. This is a principle that Buddhist monks embrace wholeheartedly, and it offers a profound example for how we can approach food in our daily lives. In the traditional Buddhist monastic life, monks are often taught to eat with complete presence, dedicating their full attention to each bite they take. This means avoiding distractions such as rushing through meals or eating while watching television. Instead, monks sit in quietude and savor the taste, texture, and sensation of the food, acknowledging the nourishment it provides not only to the body but to the mind and spirit as well. The essence of eating with full attention lies in the practice of being fully present and aware of each moment, which in this case, extends to the act of eating. When we engage in mindful eating, we shift from being mechanically absorbed in our food or eating mindlessly, to a state where we acknowledge and appreciate the food in front of us. We begin to notice the colors, smells, and textures of the meal and appreciate the energy it provides. In doing so, food transforms from a mere necessity to an opportunity for cultivating mindfulness and connecting with the present moment. In Buddhist teachings, there is a deep understanding that the mind and body are interconnected. Our physical actions, such as eating, are profoundly influenced by the state of our mind. When we eat mindfully, we bring awareness to the sensations in our body, learning to recognize the subtle cues of fullness or satisfaction. By doing so, we can begin to eat less without feeling deprived, as we become more attuned to when our bodies are truly nourished. Unlike mindless eating, where we may continue eating out of habit or distraction, mindful eating helps us develop a clearer sense of when we have had enough. This process of being in tune with our body's signals is a key aspect of the Buddhist approach to food and consumption. In Buddhism, there is an understanding that desire and attachment to things, including food, can lead to suffering. The practice of mindfulness allows us to step back from these desires, recognizing that food, like all other things, is impermanent. We learn to enjoy it fully while recognizing that it does not define us or our happiness. The idea of non-attachment is central to Buddhist philosophy, and it teaches us to enjoy food without becoming overly attached to it or consumed by it. Mindful eating fosters this non-attachment, allowing us to find satisfaction in the simple act of eating, without overindulgence or excess. Through the practice of mindful eating, we also come to understand the interconnectedness of all beings. Each meal we eat is the result of the efforts of countless individuals, the land, and the natural elements that bring the food to our table. In Buddhism, there is a deep sense of gratitude for the food we consume, as it is seen as a gift from the earth and the efforts of those who cultivate it. By eating mindfully, we cultivate this gratitude, which helps us appreciate the food in front of us and the nourishment it provides, not just physically but spiritually as well. Additionally, mindful eating encourages us to practice moderation, another key teaching in Buddhism. It is easy to fall into the trap of eating out of boredom, stress, or emotional need. However, through mindfulness, we can become more aware of these tendencies and choose to eat when we are truly hungry, rather than simply out of habit. This approach prevents overeating, which can lead to discomfort and dissatisfaction. Instead, we eat in moderation, nourishing our bodies without excess. Incorporating mindfulness into our eating habits is an act of self-care, but it is also an act of spiritual practice. It helps us develop a deeper understanding of ourselves, our bodies, and our relationship to the world around us. The practice of eating with full attention is not just about savoring each bite or feeling more satisfied. It is about fostering a sense of presence, gratitude, and balance in our lives. By learning to eat mindfully, we can create a healthier, more balanced relationship with food, one that brings true nourishment and fulfillment. Through this practice, we begin to live in alignment with the Buddhist teachings of mindfulness, moderation, and non-attachment, leading us toward greater peace and contentment. So, if you find yourself constantly reaching for food, yet still feeling a sense of emptiness, perhaps it's time to explore the art of mindful eating. By applying the teachings of Buddhism to our eating habits, we can cultivate a deep sense of fulfillment that goes far beyond the mere act of consumption. Eating with full attention allows us to experience food in a way that nourishes both body and spirit, leaving us with a profound sense of satisfaction and gratitude. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the concept of enough, which serves as a guiding principle for how we approach life and all that we encounter within it. In a world that constantly urges us to acquire more, whether more food, more indulgence, more material possessions, or more experiences, it's easy to become trapped in the endless cycle of wanting and striving. Our modern culture tells us that more is better, and that satisfaction is found in accumulation. However, Buddhism offers a stark contrast to this mindset, inviting us to reflect on the profound wisdom that true satisfaction is not found in excess, but in realizing that we already have enough. In Buddhist philosophy, the understanding of enough is deeply tied to the concepts of moderation, mindfulness, and contentment. The teachings emphasize that our desires and attachments often lead to suffering, because we are constantly chasing something outside of ourselves, believing that what we don't have will bring us happiness. However, Buddhism teaches that happiness does not lie in the accumulation of external things, but in cultivating an internal state of peace, contentment, and acceptance. This realization that we have enough can be transformative in how we relate to food, consumption, and even our own desires. When we eat mindfully, we begin to understand the concept of sufficiency. Instead of eating quickly or mindlessly, driven by cravings or habits, we can focus on the experience of eating with full attention. In this state, we connect more deeply with the food we consume. We begin to taste each bite more fully, appreciating the nourishment it provides not just to our bodies, but to our minds and spirits as well. Through mindfulness, we can cultivate an awareness that enables us to feel fulfilled with what is in front of us, whether it's a small meal or a simple snack. We begin to understand that we don't need to overeat or indulge excessively to feel satisfied. The practice of mindful eating invites us to experience the true essence of food. It is enough, just as it is. In Buddhism, the practice of enough is closely connected to the principle of moderation. The Buddha taught that following the middle way, avoiding both extremes of indulgence and asceticism, leads to a life of balance and harmony. This principle can be applied to eating as well. When we practice moderation, we avoid overeating, which is often driven by desire or emotional needs, and instead eat in accordance with our true physical hunger. We realize that consuming food is not about fulfilling endless desires but about nourishing our bodies in a way that promotes health and well-being. In this way, the Buddhist concept of enough encourages us to seek contentment in simplicity and sufficiency, rather than in excess. Contentment, according to Buddhist teachings, is one of the key factors in achieving peace and happiness. In a world that constantly pushes us to seek more, the true treasure lies in the ability to embrace the present moment and appreciate what we already have. Contentment doesn't come from acquiring more, it comes from accepting and appreciating what we already possess. When we embrace the idea of enough, we shift our mindset from one of constant craving to one of gratitude and appreciation. This shift in perspective allows us to find satisfaction in the simplest things, whether it's a modest meal, a moment of stillness, or a quiet walk in nature. We begin to recognize that these small, simple pleasures are enough to bring us joy and fulfillment. Buddhism also teaches the importance of non-attachment. When we are attached to the idea of always needing more, whether it's more food, more possessions, or more experiences, we are bound to suffer. Attachment leads to a constant sense of longing and dissatisfaction, as we can never fully satisfy the insatiable desires of the ego. However, when we practice non-attachment, we free ourselves from this cycle of craving. We learn to enjoy what we have without clinging to it or expecting it to bring us lasting happiness. In the context of eating, this means enjoying food without becoming overly attached to the idea of needing more or seeking pleasure from indulgence. We come to understand that food is simply a means of nourishment, and that true fulfillment comes from within, not from the quantity of food we consume. Through the Buddhist practice of mindfulness and the understanding of enough, we begin to experience a shift in how we view our relationship with food and consumption. Instead of seeking more, we begin to find peace in what we already have. We eat less but feel more satisfied, and we realize that contentment is not dependent on the amount we consume but on our ability to appreciate the present moment and the blessings in our lives. The real treasure, as Buddhism teaches, is not in accumulating more but in understanding that what we have right now is enough. It is through this acceptance that we discover true happiness and peace. In the end, the concept of enough in Buddhism is not just about food, it is a holistic approach to life. It is about recognizing that our desires, cravings, and attachments often lead us away from true contentment. When we embrace the principle of sufficiency, we let go of the need for more, and we open ourselves to the deep peace that comes from knowing that we are already complete. Through mindful eating and living, we come to understand that we don't need more to feel fulfilled, we only need to realize that we already have enough. The middle way, as taught in Buddhism, is a path of balance and moderation, avoiding extremes in all aspects of life. This concept is central to the teachings of the Buddha and offers profound guidance for how we can live a life of harmony. It is not about indulgence in worldly pleasures or harsh asceticism, it is about finding a path that lies in the middle, where one can live a life of peace and contentment. When it comes to eating, the middle way teaches us to approach food with mindfulness and awareness. Rather than viewing food as something to be indulged in excessively or something to be strictly denied, we are encouraged to see it as nourishment for the body. Food is not to be treated as an enemy, nor is it to be worshipped as the source of all joy. Instead, it is a means to sustain the body, a resource that is essential to our well-being. In practicing the middle way in our eating habits, we learn to embrace moderation. It is not about adhering to extreme diets or fasting, nor is it about overeating or giving in to cravings. The key is in moderation, consuming food that nourishes us, but without indulging in excess. Just as the Buddha advised his followers to find balance in all things, we too are invited to find the right balance in what we consume. One of the most important aspects of this approach is the ability to see food for what it truly is: fuel for the body, rather than something that controls our emotions or desires. In Buddhism, attachment and desire are seen as the root causes of suffering, and this applies to our relationship with food as well. When we become too attached to food, either through indulgence or restriction, we are allowing our desires to dictate our actions, which ultimately leads to suffering. Thus, the middle way encourages us to eat mindfully, with gratitude and awareness. We should eat what we love, but in a way that is in tune with the needs of our bodies, without excess or deprivation. This is not about perfection, it is about finding the right balance that nurtures both our body and our mind. By practicing mindful eating, we develop a sense of gratitude for the nourishment we receive and an understanding that food is simply one of many tools we use to maintain balance in our lives. Moreover, the middle way teaches us to approach all aspects of our lives with the same principle of balance. Just as we strive for balance in our relationship with food, we must also seek balance in our relationships, work, and even our spiritual practices. It is only through balance that we can achieve true happiness and contentment. In essence, the middle way invites us to free ourselves from the extremes of indulgence and restriction, to live a life where we appreciate the simplicity of what we have, and to act in a way that promotes peace and harmony both within ourselves and in our interactions with others. It is a path that leads us away from the suffering caused by attachment and brings us closer to a state of inner peace and enlightenment. In the teachings of Buddhism, attachment is identified as the root cause of suffering, and this principle extends to all aspects of our lives, including our relationship with food. Attachment arises from the mind's tendency to cling to things, ideas, or experiences, believing that they will provide lasting happiness. This craving creates a cycle of desire and dissatisfaction, where we constantly seek to fulfill our desires, only to find that they never truly satisfy us. This is especially true with food, where we may become emotionally attached to certain foods or the very act of eating itself. Such attachments bind us to a cycle of craving, leading to overeating, indulgence, or feelings of guilt when we do not satisfy our desires. Buddhism teaches us that attachment to food, like any other attachment, leads to suffering. When we attach ourselves to specific foods, whether as a source of comfort, joy, or reward, we create expectations and desires that are difficult to fulfill. These cravings can cloud our minds, making us believe that food is the answer to our emotional needs. Yet, when we examine the nature of attachment, we find that it only perpetuates a cycle of suffering and dissatisfaction. The more we seek comfort in food, the more we are pulled into a web of desire, and the less content we become. To break free from this cycle, Buddhism encourages us to practice detachment. Detachment, in this context, does not mean rejecting food or denying ourselves nourishment. Instead, it means releasing our emotional attachment to food as a source of comfort or happiness. By seeing food for what it truly is, simple sustenance for the body, we can free ourselves from the cycle of craving. In doing so, we are able to cultivate a healthier and more balanced relationship with food, one that is based on mindfulness and awareness rather than desire. When we practice detachment from our cravings, we begin to see food in a new light. We no longer view it as something to be sought after compulsively, but as a tool for maintaining our well-being. We begin to eat with intention and mindfulness, focusing on nourishing our bodies without allowing food to become an emotional crutch. By doing so, we can eat less but still feel nourished and satisfied. This shift in perspective allows us to find contentment in simplicity, freeing us from the constant cycle of craving and overeating. Through mindfulness and detachment, we learn to listen to our bodies and recognize when we are truly hungry and when we are eating out of habit or emotional need. This awareness helps us make choices that support our physical health and emotional well-being, allowing us to break free from the hold that food has on us. We also come to understand that the craving for food is just one manifestation of our attachment to the material world. By practicing detachment in our relationship with food, we also learn to detach from other desires and attachments in our lives. Ultimately, by releasing our attachment to food, we not only improve our relationship with nourishment, but we also free ourselves from the cycle of craving that leads to suffering. In the Buddhist path, this liberation from attachment is the key to cultivating peace of mind and achieving true contentment. We learn that happiness does not arise from the satisfaction of desires, but from the freedom found in letting go of those desires. When we stop clinging to food as a source of comfort, we can experience true nourishment both for our bodies and for our minds. This practice of detachment is an essential part of the journey toward enlightenment, where we discover the joy of living without the need to constantly seek external sources of fulfillment. By embracing this freedom, we can find peace in the present moment and live with a sense of ease and contentment. In conclusion, the path to eating less and feeling more satisfied is not about imposing restrictions upon ourselves. It is not about suppressing our desires or denying ourselves the pleasure of food. Instead, it is about cultivating mindfulness, developing contentment, and learning to release the cravings that bind us. According to Buddhist teachings, craving is the root cause of suffering, and by practicing mindfulness and awareness in our relationship with food, we can break free from the cycle of desire. When we detach from our emotional attachment to food, we open ourselves up to a deeper sense of fulfillment and peace. The Buddha taught that true happiness does not come from satisfying our cravings or indulging in pleasures. Rather, it is found in the freedom from attachment, in the ability to live without constantly chasing after external sources of gratification. In the context of eating, this means understanding that food is simply a means of nourishing our bodies, not a tool for emotional comfort or escape. By practicing mindful eating, we can develop a more balanced relationship with food, one that is based on awareness, gratitude, and moderation. This journey toward a more peaceful and satisfying relationship with food is not an overnight transformation. It requires patience, self-compassion, and consistent practice. Like any spiritual path, it is a process of growth and learning. But with each mindful bite, we move closer to a place of balance and contentment. As we develop awareness around our eating habits, we begin to notice the moments when we are eating out of habit or emotion, rather than true hunger. Through mindfulness, we can learn to respond to our body's needs with clarity, choosing nourishment over indulgence, and peace over craving. Buddhism teaches us that everything in life is impermanent, including our desires. Cravings come and go, and by observing them without attachment, we can allow them to pass without being controlled by them. This practice of non-attachment is at the heart of Buddhist wisdom and can help us navigate our relationship with food in a way that leads to lasting satisfaction. The key is to see food not as the ultimate source of happiness, but as a temporary sustenance, something to nourish our bodies and support our spiritual practice. As we embark on this journey, we can remind ourselves that the goal is not to be perfect, but to be present. It is about being aware of our actions and choices, and recognizing when we are driven by external forces such as emotional needs or societal pressures. By learning to let go of these attachments, we can develop a more peaceful and fulfilling relationship with food, and with ourselves. So, let us begin today by taking one mindful bite at a time, with full awareness of the present moment. Let us approach each meal with gratitude and mindfulness, knowing that by doing so, we are aligning ourselves with the middle way, the path of balance, harmony, and freedom from craving. As we take this journey, may we find peace, contentment, and true nourishment not only for our bodies but also for our hearts and minds. May these Buddhist teachings guide us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and a more harmonious relationship with the world around us. Thank you for taking the time to explore this path of mindful eating. May it bring you the lasting fulfillment and inner peace that come from living in balance with yourself and with the world.